Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another fascinating episode of Simply Walk the Talk. Today, I am joined with none other than Dane Ensley. And this is a fun one because I had talked about doing this with Dane quite a while ago. And we'll get into his background and how we met and all those things. But, just to jump into his background, Dane Ensley is a leader in mental health coaching and founder of Reconstruction Unlimited. Ensley has worked as a coach for the world's leading interventionists, say that 5 times fast, and has traveled the world working with a broad spectrum of clients. Dane's encouraging attitude, patience, and understanding has allowed him to carve a very distinct path in the wellness industry. His core belief that good things can be born from struggle is both humbling and motivating. This ethos resonates with all whom work with Dane. Dane truly believes that everything good that's ever happened to him is a direct result of helping someone else. So beautiful. And this is Mr. Dane Ensley. Welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, thanks, dude. Good to see you.
Likewise. I know we had attempted to try to record in person when I was recently in LA. And of course, as things happen, that didn't work out. So here we are nonetheless. We did get a chance to meet. We just didn't get a chance to record. And I wanted to make sure to do this justice by taking the time to really find out more about you, because although we've known each other for a while and we've been doing some work together, I still have a lot to learn about you, man. And so I think the listeners and the viewers will get an opportunity to learn about you as I do. But let's just start with why the hell have you started a health coaching, mental wellness company?
That's a good question. Thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of your podcast. I just finished your book, and I'm a big fan of you as a human being. I think in your space, there's few people that touch other people in the way that you do, and you do it in such a personal, loving way. And people that don't know you need to get to know you, because you're an immense human being, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
To answer
I very much appreciate that. You're
welcome. To answer your question is why and how Reconstruction came to be. It's a long story, and in a nutshell, I got better, and I was in some ways thrust into helping other people. I wasn't forced to do it, right? But I didn't know where I was going, and I needed to kind of figure that out before I left the endeavor of moving to New York and, coming back home with my tail between my legs. And I walked into a facility that provided drug and alcohol rehabilitation to people, and they gave me a job. And it was a bizarre series of events. And I'd never thought about helping people professionally ever. I was a pretty hardcore drug addict and alcoholic for the last few years of my drinking. I'm sorry, Josh. That's the phone. Apologies.
That's the nature of business.
It's the phone. Just give it a second to stop ringing, and I'll unplug it. I'll unplug it here for a sec. Hold on.
No problem.
just so it doesn't get us again. It's one of those old school ones where you can just unplug it. Like we have a hard phone line in the office.
It's not a rotary. It's not a rotary phone, is it?
No, but it's like one of those old phones that it's like an old phone with a cord and it's all plastic. It's like, one that your grandmother would have had. So I never thought I'd live my life in service of others. And I was given this opportunity and pushed into that opportunity by something bigger than myself. And I took it and I went with it. And, in typical Dane fashion, I tend to overdo things, such as the way with being a drug addict and alcoholic. We tend to go all the way. And even in recovery, I tend to go much farther and harder than a lot of people and really overcommit. And so I doubled down on helping people and got my credential to be a substance abuse counselor in the state of New York, and did that for a lot of years, and then started coaching people for other agencies and doing work for them. And then realized I didn't want to be working for anyone else. And I thought I could be coaching people a more specific way. So I started doing my own thing. And then the business, my little practice, grew to be bigger than just me. And I needed to bring on more people. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I started the current iteration of the agency that I call it an agency, and it's called Reconstruction Unlimited. And that's kind of how it started. Why I do it to help people. We've got a little slogan, sort of, it's on some of our stuff, but it's also an internal slogan of we help people, right? It's as simple as that. We think, unlimited change is possible. And so I get to wake up every morning and go to work and help other people. And I think that's sort of the most important thing that we can do as humans. As long as we have sort of our own house in order, helping other people is really the name of the game. And it keeps me sane and keeps me happy. And doing it professionally it's a gift. I love it.
Well said. And, there's so many things I want to unpack, because I had the great fortune of being able to listen to an interview on a podcast called Courage to Change with Ashley. And when I listened to that, I just was like, wow, maybe I should have took more time to really understand who you are and what it is that you do. But here we are now doing it. And so it sounds like, just from listening to that podcast, you come from about 3 generations of addicts or people in recovery. So let's talk about that a little bit, if you're open to it, because I want people to understand, because if you're listening to this for the first time, we're about 7 minutes in or so, and you see you or you hear you, it's like, oh, this guy's got his shit together, and what is he talking about? He got better, and what does it mean? Oh, he just throws out went through recovery, and I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and now I've started this business and everything is fine. But it seems as if it wasn't that easy. So let's talk about the fact that I think it was your grandmother who now has 50 years of sobriety, and your mom has 20 some years, almost 30 years of sobriety, and I think you're into like 11 years of sobriety. So let's just kind of talk about that, because I want people to be able to relate. There might be people out there who think, oh, you know what, I should really tune in because I'm in the same boat.
It's cool to talk about this here, because what you talk about on your platform is optimization. It's you lean toward wellness, and you're an avid biohacker, and you have this huge expansive wealth of knowledge around sort of optimizing the taking care of oneself. For people like me, the first thing we have to do is take care of we have to take care of the thing that ails us the most, right? Which is this alcoholism, this drug addiction, right? And it's been written about a lot in a lot of different ways, as a spiritual malady, as a disease, as some people will say it's sort of like having an allergy, right? It's like I can't take the first drink. After I take the first drink, I break out in handcuffs, right? It's a joke we say in 12-step communities. So I think for your listeners and especially listeners of yours that may fall into this category and haven't found recovery, it's maybe why a lot of the things they're trying aren't working, right? I think a lot of us will try certainly a lot of us will try the quick fix, right? And then some of us, and I've been known to do this myself, will try the sort of novelty fix, right? We'll try the supplementation. We'll try the the optimization protocol. We'll try fasting. We'll try sleeping a particular way. We'll try cold plunging or infrared saunaing or whatever it is. And if we're not really looking inward at really what ails us and really like that, the core genesis of what that is, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. And then we do the world a disservice, right? If we're not taking care of ourselves and we're not sort of correcting what's wrong with us and the genesis of that, we never really get to the appropriate solution. And then we can't help other people, like we were talking about, right? The whole point of this thing is to help other people. So I think it's really cool that it's being talked about a lot more. Addiction, substance abuse, alcoholism, mental illness, mental health, right? It's becoming destigmatized. And that's a huge part of the work that we do is the destigmatization of that. Everyone has problems. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get touched. It just is what it is. You're going to have an issue. You may have had issues and you've recovered from them in ways. You're probably going to have more things happen and you're going to have to recover from them. It's all this whole living thing is multiple iterations, I think, of recovery. And recovery doesn't have to just be about, it doesn't have to be my story. My story is I took my first drink when I was very young. I think it was 11 or 12. And it did something for me. And it did something that I don't think it does for a lot of people, but it does something to the addict. And it provided me with this sort of sense of belonging in a way, right? I felt okay. And for a long time in my childhood, I didn't feel okay. Through my adolescence, I didn't feel okay. And it was about fixing something inside me. And I was using this thing, right? Like we do now as healthy, well individuals, we use this other stuff. We'll use the supplementation. We'll use the biohacks to help us feel better. But if we don't have the base, we don't have that base covered, it just all falls through the cracks, doesn't it? I know I'm speaking your language. I know you know all this, but I think it's really interesting for our listeners to hear and to be reminded that we've got to have a solid foundation. And my foundation is in drug and alcohol recovery. I've come a very long way in the last over a decade I've been doing this. And the way in which I take care of myself has evolved. But it really starts there, It starts with very simple recovery, very simple principles of a particular program, right? It's trusting something bigger than myself, taking care of sort of my insides, cleaning up the wreckage that I've created, and then helping other people in its most simplified form, I think.
Yeah, something that really resonated with me that is very much in line with what you just mentioned. And I actually sent this quote to you before we recorded today. And this was mentioned by Ashley on her podcast with you. And she said, people spend a lot of time fighting who they are instead of optimizing for who they are. And to me, I just was like, ooh, let me take a beat with that. Let me take a beat. And I rewound it and I listened to it again. And I just thought, man, that hits the nail on the head for me and what I do. And also I'm assuming for you, because it's about letting people, well, first being aware of who you are. Right. And I talk a lot about awareness because of the book that I wrote. And and just it's a big part of my practice. But it's kind of like what you were just saying. It's basically like we got to figure out who we are, where is that foundation, and then what are the things that trigger us along the way. And then something else that kind of comes to mind in my sort of ignorance when I first met you was I just have thought that people that are in addiction or that are trying to recover from addiction, I thought it was all only lumped into like a couple of categories, whether it be just drinking or major drugs. I didn't think of anything else. And then when I first met you and I spoke to you because we were working with a client together, it was like, oh, wait, addiction kind of can extend into all realms of life, right? Like it can be food, it can be sex, it can be clothes, like shopping. It can be a whole host of things. So what would you say about that? Because you have way more experience in this than I do, but I kind of want to help paint this picture of like, what does it actually mean to be in recovery?
Yeah. You can be addicted to a lot of things, right? And there's sort of levels to it all. I think on the last podcast I was on, we talked about addiction being a spectrum disorder, which is relatively a new way of thinking about it. It's not brand new, but the old school way of thinking about recovery and addiction was that you're an addict or you're not. It's sort of black and white, right? And if you're an addict, there's this like one solution to the problem. And if you're active in your addiction, there's one way of stopping that, and it's this solution. So I have my solution is that sort of old school black and white thing. That's Dane's solution. I don't promote that for everyone, right? That's what worked for me. And I think there's a lot of ways to get better, and there's a lot of ways to recover. Being in recovery is an individual journey, right? It's different for everyone. I have my experience, and there's a lot of people like me that have had a very similar shared experience, and we can relate. And that's one of the beautiful things about being in recovery is that you have this shared process. You have this camaraderie. I don't think I would have gotten sober and gotten better and stayed sober and maintained being better without comrades, right? Without people that I could share that experience with. So being in recovery for me is having a community, a real, very real, solid community of people that I can access essentially at any time in any place, right? I've been recovering for a long time now, and I've done that all over the world, right? My recovery exists in me. It doesn't require that I be in a particular place or time, right? It's just what's happening is my sort of perception of reality and how I fit into it and how I adjust to it. Being in recovery for me is also a lot about discipline. Like if I don't have the ability to be disciplined about what I'm doing, I'm sort of lost. And I don't know if that's true for everyone. I certainly promote that it's necessary for most people. And I think you really understand more than most people this idea of having a discipline. You're one of the most disciplined people that I know, in many ways. And I get off on discipline, right? I get off on like getting up at the same exact time early in the morning before the sun comes up, setting the coffee maker on, feeding my dog, sitting down for 10 minutes, breathing, meditating, praying, sort of setting my intention for the day, and then working out and then getting on with my life, right? It's like this, I have these protocols for living. For me, that's being in recovery, right? And it doesn't have to be specific to drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, YouTube. This the addictive nature and the spectrum of it is so expansive now. In the old days, it was like booze and drugs and, porno mags and shit. It's like now it's a lot of things, and it's more it's more it's more broad now. People can be really hooked on a lot of things, and I see some things in my work that I think, oh wow, I didn't really think of somebody being hooked on that. That's bizarre.
Right. Well, you know what's also really fascinating, and sort of parallel to my practice, and there's going to be times when I say like my practice, uh, which assumes that it's so different from what you do, but in a lot of ways we do the same thing, right? We help people. But you know, in my field, I noticed that some of the best trainers and health coaches in the world, you know, medical practitioners and things like that, are people that come from some sort of like void or some bit of pain. So, for instance, like if you're a fitness person, some of the best fitness coaches out there come from families that are morbidly obese. I happen to be one of them, right? And so I kind of compare that to someone in recovery having to hit rock bottom in order to understand the severity of needing to be in recovery if you want to live. And I realize that sometimes when you're in the thick of it, it's like living doesn't even really equate, right? Like, what does it mean to live? And so I guess I bring that up because I'm curious about the person out there who may feel like they're addicted, but not quite hit rock bottom yet. And what are some ways to kind of get around that? Because I think it's easy to be in denial. It's easy to say, oh, no, I can have a few drinks, or I can do a few lines here and there. I can gamble and I haven't lost my home. But like, what are some things you can offer to kind of bring that up into making it more of a thing?
Yeah. So the simple answer is some people can. Some people can recreate with drugs and alcohol. And what a wonderful thing. Like, I'm certainly, in my work and in my personal life, I'm certainly not anti-drugs. I'm certainly not anti-people drinking. I think it's great. I think people using drugs is great, right? Growing up, my mother had one rule: do whatever you want to do, just don't hurt yourself or other people. Now, that being the only rule, it didn't work out so well. It definitely didn't subscribe and follow that rule, but I think it's a good outlook on life in a way, right? I think not hurting yourself and other people is really great, and I also think that we have as humans, and then even more so as addicts or potential addicts, we have a very good way of deluding ourselves, right? We have a very good way of justifying or rationalizing things, right? Well, I'm just doing it on weekends. I'm just doing it on weekends and Friday. Oh, it's kind of spilling into Thursday. Oh, it's and it's a slippery slope. I think we live in a time, and we live with such an abundance of resource and knowledge now, and transparency, in some ways, that and access. Like, what you do is you provide people with free access to solutions, which is an amazing thing. If I can add to your community, it's that, be honest with yourself. And is this thing serving you, right? Is like doing a couple lines here and there, or going out and partying every weekend and getting obliterated on drugs and alcohol, is that serving you in some way? And I'd probably put money on most people. It's not really serving them. I mean, having a good time is wonderful, and having that be, having drugs or booze be part of that good time is great. But when it becomes repetitive or habitual, I think it's dangerous. You say it best. What you say is, to change ourselves, we have to change what we do most of the time. I know I'm sort of chopping that up, and it's not exactly how you say it, but if there's something that isn't working and isn't serving you, it's because you're doing the same thing over and over, right? And can be, a lot of people say that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
And alcoholism is insane because we just keep doing it. And our brains are warped chemically to only want that, right? When I was using drugs, I didn't care about eating. I didn't care about sleeping. I didn't care about sex. I didn't care about anything. All I wanted, all my brain wanted, was that drug, right? The pleasure I get from food is this. The pleasure I get from sex is this. The pleasure I get from opiate painkillers is this. So why wouldn't I do that all the time? It's my reptilian brain saying, I want to feel good all the time. So for your listeners, I think it's really important to remember we're not going to feel good all the time. And that's sort of the point, right? Like, we're going to struggle, and struggling is part of the deal. And as long as we're struggling to get somewhere and to learn and to then translate that struggle into a useful, helpful thing for ourselves and maybe for other people, why wouldn't we go that way?
Yeah, that's profound, man. It's really interesting speaking with you because I know, like, when I first met you, it was like you embody this, this guy that looks like, you could just kick anyone's ass, and you probably can. And you got tattoos, and you're tall, and don't take offense to this, please, but you look like a skinhead. You know what I mean? Like you look like right. But as I got to talk to you, my first conversation with you, I was like, whoa, there's a lot of substance to this individual. And I didn't know your story yet. But when you first told me that you used to be addicted to drugs and stuff, I think I kind of remember somehow having you describe exactly what kind of drugs, because I'm like, well, okay, so you smoke weed or something, like what was that? You're like, nah, bro, I've been in it. I've been through it. And I just immediately was like, I became super compassionate because of your journey. And then I recall, like, you asking me eventually, after we did a lot of work together, you asked me to look into your agency. And I was like, damn, this dude has an agency? Like, I'm slacking over here, So I was more than happy to join. And the amount of work that we've done together, I mean, it's been over a year now, I think. And the amount of work that we've done together now, and the amount of things that I've learned just from working with you, like, it really elevated my practice, like just being a health coach. It really elevated it because, I recall there was a time, because, we have weekly meetings, which is really great. Talk about discipline, right? And, we don't make all of them, but I remember one of the first times you didn't make a meeting, I think it was like 2 back-to-back meetings. I was like, oh shit, like, he's dealing with someone that just committed suicide. This is serious shit. And so that caused me to kind of dig in within myself and go, okay, what am I doing to help make people better? What can I do to help pass the baton so that as a team, we can help these people, stay alive and get better? And so, I mean, that's not necessarily a question, but it's just kind of like, I think it took me meeting you and then us working together for me to really understand that, like, there's some really sick people out there.
Tremendously. Yeah. And it's people die, it's part of the deal. And it's not something we like to think about often. And maybe it's not something we should think about often, but it does happen. The work that we do is, as you know, it's broad. We work, my agency, Reconstruction, we work with, I always like to say, we work with people on this end of the spectrum who are, for all intents and purposes, are very successful and have sort of certain abilities that have made them successful, and they're looking to tweak little things about themselves, right? There's something about themselves that they find to be inadequate or lacking, or they need to find purpose, or they want to sort of discard a few things. Lovely, amazing profile of person to work with, right? Because that work is so, you get to really flex your clinical and empathic muscle in a particular way with that client, right? Then we work at the other end of the spectrum with people that have persistent mental illness and who are really, really ill and need a tremendous amount of help that requires a tremendous amount of resource. And it's lovely that we have the ability as coaches, interventionists, practitioners, clinicians to kind of work with that broad spectrum of clients. There's some people we don't work with, but yeah, it's serious business. And you working on some cases with some of our clients has been such a great value add to our clients, right? Like what you bring to the table is this depth and this knowledge that we may possess, like certain team members at Reconstruction may possess, but we're not necessarily good at transmitting it, or I would say you're better at transmitting it than us. And I think that's what I saw. I remember seeing that in you and thinking, oh, wow, this guy can transmit this stuff that I think is really important to these clients that I've always struggled to communicate the importance of that, because I'm so focused. Like you said, I missed 2 staff meetings back to back. I'm so focused on like the crisis management aspect of this stuff, but also just the way some people struggle and some people don't make it. A lot of people make it. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Like a lot of people find the help and they engage the help, and we help them continuously engage that help, and they get better. Like you've been on cases where people get better and you've been like such an active participant in that, and you've been the conduit, and like in one case you were like the missing link. Like you were the guy, and maybe there's some other guys on the planet that could have done it, but you were the guy, and you are the guy, and you're that one specific guy. And I always like to remind people of that are, considering engaging us professionally, is I just think it's, the most unparalleled thing can be one person, one specific person in a room with another person, listening and transmitting information in an empathic way and connecting and building that rapport. There's something about that process that it's unparalleled, right? Like one person helping one other person. And it's so simple. And if we just give ourselves the time to receive the help, and as practitioners, we allow ourselves to transmit it in a very honest way, I think we have the ability to change entire systems and environments. And it's a really beautiful thing to be a part of. And I know you love it. I mean, I see it all the time, how much you love it.
I really do. And, and I know you and I, we've discussed this, but there's come a point when, and I should probably figure out ways around this. But for right now, like those that show the greatest amount of discipline and they seem to be getting the best results are the ones I gravitate most to, and that shouldn't necessarily be the case, right? I should be able to like have this same amount of enthusiasm for everyone, but I'm a human. And, and when I see results, it's like for instance, working with Roger on this tour compared to last tour is like night and day. And it's like, is that because of his discipline and his willingness to adhere to the protocols laid out? Or was it my ability to kind of be on him because I saw that he definitely wanted to change? I think it's actually a blend of the two. The blend that comes together is like, if he doesn't call me by a certain time, I call him. Right. And so if you don't want me to call you, call me. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I don't know what you have going on, but we said that we're going to do this and we're going to do it. And so that's what I've started to see. And it took some time to understand just how I could fit into Reconstruction. It's taken some time, and it's still taking time. It's still, I'm still learning as we go, but I'm really having a good time with it. And I'm glad that what you've created still exists. And I hope that with this podcast and other podcasts and just, I just hope people can really understand what you're doing so that we can help more people. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Me
So
too.
we are about 30 minutes in. So you know what that means. We're going to do a Pomodoro
You know what that
break.
means.
Yeah. I would love for you to give an example of something that either you do or that you ask your clients to do, to sort of break up the monotony of just either standing here or sitting here. Anytime you get sort of complacent in a certain position, what could you do to offer someone to get out of that?
I subscribe to and I promote like the simplest stuff the way you do, right? I remember you suggesting to someone that they just get up and take a walk. And for me, it's really that simple. It's just getting up and breaking the pattern that you're in. I recently, and I think our break should be, it's boring, but we should stretch a bit. I've been really injured from a couple trips that I took to the mountain a couple weeks ago, and I have re-engaged myself into a stretching practice each evening. And it's like, I forgot how simple some things are, and I don't want to stretch. Like, I just want to be in the gym, jacking steel the whole time. I want to be a big boy. I don't care about stretching. And as advanced as I can be in so many ways, I neglect some of the most simple things that help me the most. So I think we should stretch.
Let's stretch, bro. I'll take your lead. So
I've been having really bad hip mobility issues, and I don't know if that's from my wearing my backpack incorrectly, and also I was using for the first time I used walking poles down the mountain, and I might have been in a weird position, and I think I don't know, I jacked up something, but it's almost as if I had this double sciatic nerve pain.
Whoa.
Stretching is legit.
Stretching is legit. For those that are only listening, Dane just took us through a very beautiful extended arms above the head stretch, fingers interlocked, palms facing up, and then we kind of bent over to the side, and then we added in some spinal twists and things like that. So, I mean, if you take his point of just getting up and moving or simply just stretching, I think we end up crippling ourselves by thinking we have to do a certain stretch or we have to do a certain amount of time under tension or under stress stretch, that sometimes we just forget to do it. And something that's really funny, I was, obviously just recently on tour, and someone was asking me about massage guns, like the percussion massagers. And she was asking me about what do you think about those and how often do you use them? And back to what you said earlier about being honest with ourselves. I sat there and I go, oh, well, I have about 4 different types of massage guns, but I don't use them. I use them one time to make some content. I pack it with me, I pack it in all my bags on tour, and I use it maybe 2 times on the entire tour. And it's like, wait a minute, man. I have to also check in with myself, we got to start using some of these tools, especially if we spend money on them, Anyway.
Dude, they're expensive. And I think what you say in your book the most, what I heard you say the most in your book is listen to your body, right? Listen to what's going on. And that's hard for people to do if they're just starting on their own personal journey of getting better or recovering or, whatever you want to call it. But developing that skill to listen to yourself and listen to your body and then repeat that and understand what your body is going through is invaluable. I have about 14 percussion guns, right? They're all different sizes and versions. I've got the old Theragun that's really loud.
Yep.
And I forget to use them too. And they can be really helpful. But I also think my stretching recently has just been stretching on the ground, like the oldest version of stretching 1.0, right? And sometimes that's what's best for me.
Good. Yeah, good. I think awareness, interoception, what's happening inside our bodies is one of the best tools we could ever use. So, throw away the massage guns and whatever, and do what you're saying. Simply just stretch. Because then you might realize that, actually, this stretch brought up a different type of pain I didn't realize I had. And I like to, when it comes to pain in the body, I like to think above and below. And so then maybe that's when you could break out the massage gun, right? Because if you're already down on the ground and the massage gun, you're one of 14 massage guns is somewhere nearby, then, maybe you grab one, maybe you don't. So, but I think that's also
and the things that you pack are nuts. I've seen you pack. We've been in places together, undisclosed locations together. And
That's right.
Dude, the stuff that you pack is so if you can leave one thing behind, leave the percussion device behind, because the amount of stuff you bring the whole laboratory with you.
Bro, I don't know. Did you ever try the Hoppe spray? Did I get you to try the Hoppe spray? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I couldn't handle it, dude. I couldn't do it. It made my brain burn, and dude, I could probably do it. And I'm a huge fan of, what's his name? Dr.
John Lawrence.
John Lawrence. I'm a super fan of everything he does. But that shit, I can't do that. It's too much.
It's intense. The reason why I do it is, one, I brought that up because on this whole tour, I packed it. I have a little ice freezer pack now that houses several different things. One of which is Hoppe. And I do it because it's almost like one of those moments in which what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that is so painful. In the beginning, at least, it's so painful that I have this sense of achievement once I do it. In fact, I did it right before this podcast, and it's really cool. But I also have to kind of try to understand: am I using that as a crutch? Can I get to these states without it? Of course, right? In fact, right now as we speak, I'm doing a 5-day fast. We kind of talked about this a little bit. And that's why I'm sipping on this. If you're watching the video, I'm sipping on my dinner. And throughout this whole time, I am using no cannabis, no supplements. I mean, other than the Hoppe spray, right? But it's really allowing me to understand that, I can go without it if I don't need it. I truly don't need it. But I also know that if I want to get accelerated to a certain level, I can use it, and it's going to always be there, So that's kind of my recovery or potential addiction. It's I'm trying to balance out just how many of these things do I need versus what can I do within myself, like breath work, just going for a walk in nature, getting outside in the elements. If it's hot outside, get hot. If it's cold outside, get cold. That's what I'm practicing now. So.
You can get so wrapped up in all this stuff too. And I remember this is a while back, I remember getting way too wrapped up in it. And the amount of money you can spend. And it's just, it becomes its own sort of obsession, right? And I forget there's a term for being addicted to stuff that's good for you. I forget the term that they use. But it's true. I've definitely been at places where I'm spending enormous amounts of time and energy and money on this stuff. And I think we're trying in some ways to fill a void, right? And it's not all that. And I still, I have an infrared sauna at my house. You helped me get it, right? And I have the devices and I have things, and I'm certainly not as into it as you are, but I have a certain set amount of things that really help me. I think it's also that's important. And I'm again preaching to the choir. You say this all the time: is do what works for you and figure that out. But I also think there's you kind of have to overdo it to then bring it all back in like you're doing, right? It's
right.
Okay, This is too much here. let me just tighten it a little bit. Let me just
Yep.
like get specific about what's really helping me and what's really getting me there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that to me, that sounds a lot like, an addict hitting rock bottom. It's just on the other end of the spectrum, right? It's like, it can feel like, especially like if I were to turn this camera around and show you all this stuff in my place, it's finally making me go, okay, I want to just completely go minimalist, because there's way too much clutter. It's way too much. And I just keep accumulating things over and over and over and over. And it makes me think back to how I grew up with my dad, my brother, my dad, at my dad's place. He's a borderline hoarder. He has things from when I was a little baby. And the sentimental value around that is important. But like, how about just take a photo of it and get rid of it? Like, I'd rather hoard a bunch of data than to hoard a bunch of actual things. So, you're probably going to start to see some content around me getting rid of things, because I mean, obviously, like some of my big toys, I've got a full-on gym in my apartment now, full-on gym. And these are things that are important to me because it allows me to be at home and work out whenever I want to. But yeah, anyway, I think we're getting off the topic of of you and what you're doing. So you've got Reconstruction now. How long has it been going? How long have you been doing it?
In its current iteration, it's been about 4 years that we've had this specific structure to the agency where, I founded it and I run the sort of business development side of things. And then I have people that manage cases. And then I have coaches that are in the field working with our teams and working with our clients. So yeah, it's been 4 or 5 years since we named it and we sort of structured it the way it's been structured. And now I'm looking forward to the future of, continually growing it and scaling it. And it's very trendy to say things like doing it sustainably, but that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out how to retain the quality while building a much bigger business. Our intention behind that is to help more people, right? We want to help more people in more places because the couple of reasons, we're just jazzed on helping people. That's what we're good at, right? We want to help as many people as we can. And, it's why not push the boundaries and the limits of helping people? Like, why do we have to just remain sort of small and local? We want to build this into a brand, like a sort of a lifestyle of taking care of yourself wherever you're at, whatever you're dealing with, right? You can be addicted, you can be mentally ill, you can be behaviorally disordered. You just be a normal person that wants to be a better person, right? Let's find ways and strategies to get you there.
So what does that look like for a person that happens to maybe hear this or they get referred? What does it look like? They pick up the phone or they send an email. What does it look like, for sort of onboarding a person into Reconstruction?
It's pretty simple. It's people connect with us. We've got a website. We have, we're developing some interesting social media content. It's in development, and I'm doing more of these, right? I'm kind of getting out there and speaking to more people about what we do. People call us or email us or connect with friends that have worked with us before, and we go through an assessment process, right? We need to know, we try not to subscribe to the idea of like a particular protocol works for everyone, right? We want to treat everyone as unique. And that's difficult because to treat everyone in a unique way requires a lot of time and attention and care. But that's what we believe in. So you call us, we assess what's going on with you. If we take our time. If it's a crisis situation, we move much quicker. But we assess what's going on. We speak to as many people as possible within your system, if that's on the table. and we get kind of an understanding of you. And after that, we develop goals, strategies, we develop solutions for you, and then we present those. And assuming everyone's going the same way, then we deploy those strategies. Typically, that comes working with a coach, right? And that can be working with a coach a few times a week on Zoom. That can be working with a coach every single day that lives in your home to redirect your behaviors and your actions in real time, right? Like completely reconstruct the way you operate. And that's that's a pretty intensive process. I'm a big fan of doing it regardless of where you are on whatever spectrum you're at, right? You don't need to be in a crisis scenario to work with a coach 24/7. If you can do that, right, and you want to engage someone that way, what an amazing thing. You get there much quicker, right? It's like having Jiminy Cricket there, always sort of redirecting you. It's like you've got this augmented consciousness of like, nope, this way. Nope, let's go that way. Nope, let's think about that thing. No, why don't we try that thing, right? And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool when we get to do that. So then we deploy and then we maintain that strategy. And strategies change and they need to be changed at times. And eventually people get better, right? And then there's a closing, there's a discharge, right? There's like, okay, you've done it. And now go and practice it on your own. There's a titration schedule to that, right? We don't just cut people loose and say, okay, we've done our job and now go into the world and figure it out. We support people as they do that and as they sort of change and grow and they need some scaffolding and support, but eventually people get better and they move on. And that's, our intention is to sort of work ourselves out of a job.
I really like that. I mean, and thanks for breaking it down that way because it's very helpful. And something that came up while you were saying that is, again, back to listening to the podcast you did with Ashley. I remember you talked about, I guess it was one of your first couple of clients or gigs. I think it was here in New York. You kind of said you were like a glorified babysitter in a way, and that you were there 24/7. Like you knew when this person was up in the middle of the night, you knew exactly what he or she was doing, where she was going, what was happening. And I somewhat can relate to that because part of the reason why this tour with Roger was so much better than the last tour is because I was very close to that. I had a room, a key to his room in every hotel we went to. I was at every meal he was at. I would send him food or make him food, right? Protein shakes or eggs, all that stuff. I knew all of his blood panels, his gut testing. I knew when he took a crap. I mean, I knew everything there is to know about this person, but that's what made the results great, right? And it is challenging. It's challenging on both sides, right? Because on his side, there's no privacy, but he knew he needed it, right? It's like an addict that knows he needs to recover. And from my end, I couldn't help but think like, man, I really want to like hang out. I want to go party I don't really party, but I wanted to go and do other things, but I had to remember why I'm there, what my role is and was. And I ended up getting 2 bonuses, right? 2 raises from doing what I do anyway. But because he didn't catch COVID, he improved throughout the tour. He was only so sore like 2 or 3 shows that he complained. But like there was a lot of great work that happened because we both just buckled down and decided to do the work. So that's what it sounds like whenever you mention that. And I can't imagine doing that right now, because I'm spread so thin, like with some of the recon clients, but who knows, it might get to that because I do think it would help.
Yeah. There's a difference in helping people who want the help,
Right.
And you said it earlier when you were talking about the work you were doing on tour recently, which is it my client that wanted it more than the last time, or is it me, or is it a combo? And it's obviously a combo. That's definitely what it is. But there's a there's this magic that happens when someone really wants to change, really wants to put in the work. And I think that's what really sets us aside from a couple other people that do similar work, where I want to work with people who want to change. And I'm happy to work with people who are struggling to commit to that change and help them figure out a way to commit, or positively, I always say, I like to positively manipulate someone's life, right? Like, how do I find a way to compel them to get better? But I'm not in the business of forcing people to get better. It's just that back in the day, that's what we were assigned to do when we worked for these other businesses who contracted us. And almost everything that I learned on those jobs, I endeavor to do differently, because I think a lot of that stuff was not helpful for our clients, and it wasn't helpful for me as a coach. It's a real blessing, though, to be able, I know you experience this a lot, work with people who want to change. What a lovely thing. What an amazing thing.
Yeah, because spending the money is not enough sometimes. Right? Let's face it. Like, of course, I imagine, I don't know the cost of what it is to work with Reconstruction, but it's working with me is not cheap. But
no, it's not cheap.
And working with Recon is not cheap. But
no,
this is what kind of puts skin in the game, right? And for me personally, I'm motivated by part of the reason why I have all these expensive gadgets and workout equipment and supplements and stuff is because I know that I will never spend money on something and not use it. It's just my mentality, maybe it stems from the fact that I grew up very poor and I had to work very hard for everything that I ever wanted or needed. And so that bleeds into my life today. So getting rid of things means that I have no use for it anymore, right? Like if it's just sitting there, then I'm going to get rid of it now. That's where I'm at today. So, Dane, I could talk to you for hours, man. I could talk to you for hours.
Fast though, dude. You got to get to bed.
Yeah, it's all good. So let me, before we start to kind of wrap up, I want to make sure that we do the right thing by making sure people understand what it is they can get from working with Recon, or best ways to make sure that loved ones, whether it's an intervention or whatever the case may be. But let's just dive into a little bit more of that, because I want to make sure that people know that there is a resource in Recon.
Cool. The resource that we have at Reconstruction is our biggest resource is creativity, right? Like that is where we shine. And I know that that's not necessarily something that you can put your finger on, right? When I say creativity, but I promise you it's not a throwaway. It's not me just trying to sound cool. It really is what we do best is we create these creative solutions for people that are struggling. We're not supposed to know all this stuff. Like I call you all the time asking you for recommendations or asking if this certain thing is going to be good for this certain thing and so on and so forth. And I think what people need most when changing and engaging someone like myself in my business is the willingness to be teachable, right? If you have the ability to be teachable, we're off to a great start. And if you are looking for a customized set of creative solutions, we're definitely for you. I'm also not someone who just bills willy-nilly. Right? What we do costs money, and it's a business, right? I'm not shy about saying that. It is my business. But I'm very happy to get on the phone with any human being, anywhere, at any time that I can, and speak to them about solutions that aren't our solution, right? If you are struggling with substance abuse, with alcoholism, if you think you have an issue with drinking, or you're kind of curious about it, or whatever, there's stuff that's free, right? You don't need me and my business. Now, we do it a particular way, and we're very good at doing it, and we can execute a particular way. But a lot of people for many, 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 many decades have gotten better with a set of free solutions. And what a wonderful thing that is, right? If you're looking for something more tailor-made, if you're looking for something more specific, if you're looking to work with, I don't do so much work individually with clients anymore, but if you're looking to work with people like me in a coaching capacity, like you in a coaching capacity, like some of our other coaches, give us a shout. You don't have anything to lose. You're just going to have a cool conversation with a couple cool people about some potentially cool solutions. And if you're not into it, that's okay.
Yeah.
There's many other roads to travel.
Really like that. And I can vouch for everything you just said, because I've been there from the from the beginning of my inclusion into this process. I've really seen how authentic and how genuine you are with everyone. It's really a beautiful thing to see, man. So, you definitely deserve applause. And I think you guys are, I guess, I think we're off to the races when it comes to a lot more. The fact that mental health awareness is trending nowadays, I think there's going to be more and more people reaching out. Like you said, even if it's just simply to talk to someone. Sometimes that's all you need. It's just to talk. And every time I talk to someone, doesn't guarantee that they're going to become a client. But, for me, it's no skin off my back to listen to what questions are being asked out there. Because I don't know all the questions that are being asked out there. I don't have all the solutions. But I've got a great team of support, of people around me, you included, that I can refer to if I don't know. So anyway. All right. I think this is time to, I'm sure I'm going to have you back on at some point, but
happy to be on.
Let's go into the last questions that I usually ask, because I'm sure these are going to be fun. So I asked 2 questions. The first question is, what are your top 2 pet peeves? What comes to mind as a pet peeve for you?
Well, the first pet peeve I have that it just instantly comes to me is people leaving things open. Drawers, ketchup bottles, water bottles are very high on the list of things that people keep open. Leaving a drawer open, it baffles me and it drives me up a wall, right? It's like, why wouldn't you just close doors? Why, right? Close the door. Pet peeve. Second pet peeve, something I didn't realize until this podcast, is I'm still in the process of figuring out audio and for these things that I'm doing with people like yourself, these podcasts, these interviews, figured out some light. What I didn't realize is that in this office, the sun sets about this time and a big white light comes and shines on my shoulder and then on my face, and my lighting changes 15 times. I think it's inconsistency. We could simplify it to, I have a difficult time with inconsistency. Those are my 2 pet peeves.
Interesting.
For today. It'll change tomorrow, but those are them today.
Absolutely. And I love that. The whole audio lighting thing, that'll get better. I mean, that's we all deal with it. I mean, I finally got it set up to where I got decent light when it's dark out, or when it's really bright outside behind me. I've learned to be able to pull the shades down to not have this halo effect. Anyway, that's a good one. How about the final question, which is one of my favorites? What is something you're most grateful for?
I often say this. There's a lot of time that I've spent observing gratitude, learning about gratitude in a program that I subscribe to and I'm a member of. We talk about living in gratitude. We can be grateful for things and just say that we're grateful for them, but what is really living gratitude is a different thing, I think, right? And a lot of other people will tell you that. How are my actions today representative of my gratitude? And I think today and right now, and especially through this conversation, I'm tremendously grateful for all the pain and suffering I've experienced in my life, right? Like all of those difficult moments, all of those transformative moments, they've really shaped me, and I would not be the person I am today without my struggle. So, and I think that's also, there's a message in that for your listeners is, if you're struggling, know that by connecting with someone who maybe knows a little bit more than you, you will come through that and you will learn from it. And then you can look back on that struggle and be grateful for it. You talk about it in your book. And I forget the name of the woman, I think her name is Tess. She talks about it in your book, right? Yeah. And that struggle is so imperative. So don't shy away from pain and suffering and struggle. It really can be a developer of something great in people's lives, I think.
Pain and joy is temporary. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that one, yeah. But well said, Dane. I mean, yeah, it's really cool to get to know you in this capacity, because usually when we hang out, it's, we have a lot of fun. We shoot bow and arrows and we do all kinds of things. You got me hooked on that. I haven't shot in a long time, but that will change.
Dude, it's on the cover of your book. I
know.
Topless. You topless with a bow and arrow.
Thanks to you, bro.
I'm taking credit for this.
You definitely are.
Anyone who's listening, this is
a product of Dane. Yeah, it's a product of Dane.
This is it right here.
Thanks for that, man. All right. Well, how can people best find out more about you? I know I mentioned I might pull up the website, but why don't you tell people like the best ways to keep in touch with all things Reconstruction and Dane Ensley?
Best way to do it is go to our website, reconstructionunlimited.com. It's a long one. You can find me on Instagram, Dane Ensley, at Dane Ensley, DaneEnsley. And then our business also is on social media at Reconstruction Unlimited. There's some cool stuff that's going to be appearing there. I've endeavored for a long time to figure that out, and I think I'm onto something, but we'll see. We'll see how people react to it. It'll be cool. Yeah,
I know it's a challenge because we've talked about this in terms of how do you promote on social media an addiction or behavioral recovery company. I know it's very challenging, but I've been seeing what you're doing. You're on it. You're doing well. So, and the fact that you're on the show means you're doing something. You're getting yourself out there. So finally, I'm happy. Thanks for your time, brother. It's really an honor to be working with you. And I hope that the listeners and the viewers, I hope you guys got something out of this. Please feel free to reach out to me directly or to Dane, or just anyone that you feel comfortable talking to, because mental health is important. So there's that. This is your boy Josh signing out with Dane Ensley of Reconstruction Unlimited. Peace.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen. Better come give us a minute or two. Open the box up, we giving you tools. Giving your engine the fuel that it needs. Breathing into it, it's autoimmune. Make a connection, we're stronger in two. Making us one of a kind of a few. Work on the mind, but show me your moves. If you do what you say, you know what to do. Yeah. Simply walk the talk.